Great. Thank you very much, Yolanta. Great, valuable information about that from you. And next up, I know we're running a little late, so the next up, I'm going to go right to the next speaker, who we have, Alaya Jafari, who is going to talk about the restorative power of yoga. So are we ready to go?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who are here today joining us from different parts of the world. I am calling you from the southern desert of Jordan, where I am visiting my family. Thank you, Hussein and Penny, for inviting me to this forum. And I want to also thank Binny, Jolanta, Christopher, everyone who has gone before me for providing a perfect segue to what I am going to talk to you about, which is the restorative power of yoga. My name is Alaya Jafari. I am an instructional coach, a yoga teacher, and a practitioner of several years. So, as you have already heard, there are many benefits of mindfulness, and if you look at the research about yoga, you would see studies that show that yoga helps you with increased strength, it helps you with flexibility, with balance, it enhances your immune function, it lowers your blood sugar level, your cholesterol level, and most importantly, it provides a mode of relaxation. It reduces stress. It provides a sense of better well-being, and when you are more relaxed, you sleep better. You manage the situations around you better. So, if you are anyone like me, from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed, we are busy doing. We move from one deadline to another, from task to task, really going through our day with more focus on productivity and speed than on reflection and relaxation. Even when we have our morning coffee, we are often not present with that cup of coffee, enjoying that moment. A lot of us are running through our to-do list for that day, or unfortunately sometimes reliving an unpleasant situation or an encounter that we had with a coworker or a family member. So this is where yoga can come and help. And when I say yoga, most of the time especially in the Western world, when we think about yoga, we conjure up this image of rigorous sun salutations, of vinyasa flow, where we're moving from pose to pose, building heat in our body, increasing our flexibility. And all of these yoga poses, including Kapalabhati, they engage our sympathetic nervous system. They release adrenaline and cortisol. They give strength to our body by by increasing our heart rate, and it helps us deal with a situation in crisis. Now, what restorative yoga does is that it includes quiet poses through slow breathing, through meditation, and guided imagery. It increases and activates a parasympathetic nervous system, which tends to slow the heart, lower the blood pressure, and allows recovery after a stressful event, and leads us to mental relaxation. So yoga is a perfect whole because it provides balance. So if sun salutations and vinyasa produce heat and activity and action and raise our blood pressure and our blood sugar levels, then restorative yoga provides the antidote to that. It relaxes our body, it slows our breath, and it really shifts our focus from the world of doing to the world of being. So, to put it in a nutshell, restorative yoga is a restful practice that is all about slowing down and opening your body through passive stretching. And if you take a restorative yoga class, sometimes you do not move as much. You may stay in different poses. The difference would be that instead of moving fast, you would be moving really slowly through your breath, and you would be holding some of the poses for 5 to 20 minutes even. So if you think that restorative yoga is easy, it is not, because you're holding a stretch or a pose for an extended period of time, which really requires a lot of focus and a lot of attention and intentional focus. So we are not in this tizzy of moving fast, but we are really creating this environment where we can cultivate relaxation. So intentional cultivation of relaxation is one of the most important goals of restorative yoga. So I would say there are 3 main benefits of restorative yoga. And as I said, my presentation would be shorter today because a lot of people have already covered most of the topics I was going to talk about. So it creates conditions for us to cultivate the skill of conscious relaxation. And it also releases the unnecessarily habitual tension of our body and mind. When we are moving in our fast-paced world, we tend to hold tension either between our shoulders, right behind our neck, sometimes in our lower back, depending on who you are as a person. And we tend to store that tension and keep it in our bodies. And many times I notice within myself, if I am stressed about a situation, if I'm caught in a traffic jam or I'm running late for something, I feel my body tense up. I feel I'm breathing deeper, not deeper, I'm breathing more irregularly. My breath is faster, not deeper. It's faster, and it is a little irregular. And so this is what it helps us do. It helps us really release the tension that we accumulate throughout our stressful days. And the last thing that it helps us do is it really sometimes it helps us face what we are often avoiding about ourselves. So many times things that are unpleasant or difficult, whether it's chronic pain or illness, a stressful situation, many times we want to avoid it, block it out of our active working memory. We don't want to focus on it. We don't want to think about it. And we think that by not focusing on it, we are moving away from it, but we're actually not doing it. We are increasing and adding to the tension that we are holding in different parts of the body. So what it does is, whether it's your pain or your or difficulty with sleeping, it really helps you confront that pain. You hold that problem with its horns and you face it. You are not avoiding it. And while it does not ever promise to take away that pain, it promises to let you make friends with that pain, to get used to that, to face it, and to know this is a part of my life. And as we know today that our brains are highly neuroplastic, increased practice of yoga and meditation and mindfulness allows us to build these new neural connections. So because we are constantly or because we are setting aside certain time in our day for restorative yoga practice to help us relax, to help us catch up with our breath, we focus on whether it's the pain or illness, and we face it and we befriend it in a way with no judgment, with no real, I wouldn't say desire, but knowing that we can't really change the situation, but this is what it is, really accepting things for what they are. And so instead of avoiding, we are facing it. And when we do that, the neural pathways in our brain sort of accommodate, that create the space of our sense of This is our normal. This is who we are. This is what we are faced with in our life. And we cannot block it. We cannot avoid it. So let's befriend it. Let's learn to live with it. And the more we practice restorative yoga, our brain creates these networks where we are able to embrace it in a better way. So again, to reiterate three things, it helps us cultivate this condition of conscious relaxation. It helps us release the tension. And lastly, it helps us face the things that we tend to avoid on a daily basis in our lives. So what I will invite you to do today at the end of this presentation is to relax. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. If not, you can stay however you feel comfortable. Sit in a posture that provides relaxation to you. So if you're seated on the floor or if you're seated in your chair, just be relaxed. Put both your feet firmly on the ground and feel that contact between your body and the surface that you're sitting on. As you inhale, lengthen your spine, roll your shoulders back, and if you feel comfortable, you may close your eyes. Inhale and exhale. Do not attempt to change anything. Just notice. Just be. Inhale. Exhale. One more inhale. And now I want you to start noticing the way you're breathing. Do not attempt to change anything, but just notice. Are you breathing slowly or fast? Is your breath relaxed or is it jagged? Are you breathing evenly with both your nostrils, or is one side more active than the other? Just notice. Breathe. What I will lead you through now is an alternate nostril breathing. It's not rocket science. Many of you already know it. You've practiced it or have been introduced to it before. So what I will do is I will show you, this is my hand. I will fold the first two fingers. So my thumb and my ring finger are free and available to me. What I will do is I will block my left nostril and I will inhale from the right. Blocking the left nostril, inhale from the right to a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Block both nostrils. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Open the left nostril. Exhale for 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3. Inhale again from the left. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale from the right. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale from the right. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale from the left. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. And release. This was very short. Normally I would have people do this at least for 6 breaths on each side, but coming back to your breathing, bring your focus to your breath again and feel if your breath is the same as when you started observing your breath earlier today. Are you breathing the same way? Is your breath relaxed, a little jagged? And are you breathing evenly with your both nostrils, or is is one more active than the other. Just observe. No judgment, no attempt to change anything, no control, just observe. And with this one tool under your belt of how to relax, you can practice this if you're stuck in a traffic jam and you're in between meetings. It really does not take more than 2 minutes, but it really helps you re-engage with your body, re-engage with your breath. It helps you really to slow down whatever you're busy with. So with that, I am going to urge you to join any class that you find around you for a restorative yoga, because again, research shows that restorative yoga can impact sleep quality, and it helps you with lowering your stress levels and your blood sugar levels. So I again want to thank all the participants for being here. Thank you, and I wish you good sleep, less pain, deep relaxation. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and go. All right, can we have the next slide? So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, just in for time's sake. But one of the things you want to, that's who I am. I'm the founder, and I'm retired as the CEO of the American Chronic Pain Association, and I'm a co-founder of the World Patient Alliance. I've done a lot of things advocating for the multidisciplinary approach to pain management. I've been an advocate for people living with pain and the multidisciplinary approach. I've been involved in many, numerous contributing to books, videos, websites, had a number of honors. But the signs of stress, we've really already heard this. But some of the things you may not think about is sort of that check of your body, just to, the muscle tension, where it's at. Some of the strongest muscle tension is often in your face, in your jaw, clenching your teeth. It's grinding your teeth, especially at night, perhaps having nightmares. Just because you're asleep doesn't mean you're still not experiencing a lot of emotions. And that's a lot of times why people grind their teeth. Fatigue, not getting enough sleep is a problem. Anger, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Withdrawing from people, the depression, pulling away, wanting to be by yourself. Quite often that's a sign, and I think a little bit, feeling of failure. And one of the interesting things about that is we lose our identity, and I think Christopher sort of touched on this, in our healthcare conditions, and they become our identity. That's why you'll always hear me talk about a person living with pain as a person with pain rather than a chronic pain patient, because we don't ever want anybody's identity to be their condition or their disease. And so it's really important to sort of own your own identity as you as a person, because there's so much more to you than just your condition or your disease. So ways to avoid stress. One of the things that I think is really important is to be able to stay in touch with your feelings. And people think, that if it just don't let it bother them or something, but unfortunately, a lot of things that bother us, a lot of emotions that we have, we don't express ourselves when at the instant things happen. We tend to repress our feelings, and we continue to repress our feelings over and over again. There's a book called The Angry Book by Dr. Theodore Rubin, and I think I read it a long time ago, but it's still in print. It's a little tiny book, and each of those chapters that he writes about it is a different kind of anger. And it's not just about yelling and screaming. There's so many different ways that we express our anger. But the problem that we have, and he ends the book by talking about the slush fund. And I've always seen that as sort of a bucket that people carry around. And every time we repress a feeling, especially those negative ones, because we want people to like us, we put another drop of water in our bucket, and we keep putting more and more drops of water as we repress those feelings until pretty soon our bucket is completely full, and we just dump it. And we just dump it on whoever comes along, and we just let everything out and just sort of yell at them for perhaps 3-4 months ago, even a year ago. What happened? Because we've repressed all these feelings, and they just hit the wrong day, the wrong time, because we were so stressed. We sort of repressed all those feelings. One thing you have to remember about feelings is there are no wrong feelings, only inappropriate actions. You have absolutely no control over how you're going to feel. The only thing you have control over is how you're going to act. So you can, and that's where we talk a lot about assertiveness and being more assertive and expressing yourself. And those are all really important things when it comes to expressing your feelings. Avoid making too many decisions at the same time. And again, that becomes people, you'll hear them say, I'm overwhelmed. And, that's happened to me as well, where, I've had so many different things. I'm trying to get them all done at once. And you get so stressed, you don't do anything. And that's part of the problem is we do too much and we just don't take the time to sort of sort them out. So we have to allow a little bit of time every day to relax. And one of the things that I like to do is to have sort of a visual reminder, whether you're at work and you have a photo of maybe a great vacation that you had, or somebody who just, gives you such a sense of warmth and love, or a color or an item that you have that will remind you of a very peaceful time. And just sort of force yourself to look at that on occasion and just take 5 minutes. You'd be amazed what 5 minutes can do to reduce that stress. But you have to allow some time every day for yourself. There'll be other ways that you can do it, longer ways. But if you're really a busy person, like I'm sure many of you are, take 5 minutes here and there. It is amazing. Ask for help when you need it. And I think that's a problem we all have. We all want to be strong and capable and have everybody look at us like, and we always say, if you want something done, ask a busy person. And that's true. The problem is there's a point, we become, because we have too many things to do, but yet we are afraid to ask for help. And that's something that's really important. We teach basic rights at the American Chronic Pain Association. And that's one of the most important ones. There's other ones like, allow yourself to make those mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, and to feel good about yourself. But allow yourself to ask for help. It's okay. It's one of your rights. Exercise daily. I know Yolanda touched on this. It's really important. Even if you just get up and walk around the room for a little bit, it's that movement. Your body becomes stiff. It just sort of, and that's when that tension builds up. So you really have to stand up and move around a little bit. So right now, I'd like you to each just sort of stop, stand up for a minute and take a stretch. Just stand up, and I'm not going to stand up or I'll have a weird picture, but just sort of, stretch your arms out, stretch them out as far as you can, put them over your head. There's another thing, I always call it the sewing machine, where you just it might have an old treadle machine from my grandmother, where you sort of you have to pump the sewing machine to make it work. There's no electricity. And so your feet go back and forth like this. And just when you're sitting, you can even do that. I know I used to fly a lot before the pandemic. And, I always kept moving. Even in my seat, I would do that, pumping my feet. Or I would make sure, I always liked the aisle seat, get up so I could just walk up and down. Once an hour, I would get up and I would walk up and down the aisle or go to the restroom or do something just to keep moving. It's really important to be flexible. Sometimes things aren't going our way. We need to be able to be flexible and do some things that other people would like to do. And sort of knowing that, people will also be flexible with you. And I think the most important thing is to keep laughter in your life. It's just so important. And when you start laughing and have a good time, it does release those endorphins, and those endorphins are what's going to help you manage your pain. So things to think about: listen to your body. And this is something that we talk about a lot in pain management. We tend to ignore it because we know we can handle more pain. And so we ignore that first ouch and we ignore the second ouch. We don't stop until our body is screaming at us. But we need to begin to listen to our body. And maybe after that first ouch, if you just sit down for those 5 minutes and relax, it won't get out of control. That's what happens, especially with pain, is we just keep pushing ourselves. We need to prove our ability, especially when you have any kind of disease or condition, that you have to show people you still have it. So the thing about pain is it's never consistent. We have good days, we have bad days. And on those good days, we're going to do everything we can to prove our ability that we still have it. And the problem is we don't listen to our body, and we push and we push and we push till it's too late. So what happens is we do more than we can. Excuse me. And then the next day, our bodies hurt so much, and we're afraid never to do that again because we've overextended ourselves, and we're afraid that that particular activity is what's going to cause more pain. So we eliminate it. So fear becomes our controlling factor, which also is creating a lot of stress. Don't take on more things than you can do. As I just said, listen to your body, do what you can do. Recognize your emotions and deal with them as they occur. As I said earlier, know when to walk away. And sometimes, there's just things you can't win. There are just some situations that you can't win, and you just have to walk away because it's only going to escalate. And the more it escalates, the more stress you're going to have, and it's just not worth it. And as Yolanda said, maintain a good night's sleep. It's really important to have a good, healthy night's sleep, to get at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. If you don't sleep, you're going to you'll get more stress. Exercise daily and take time for yourself each day. So some of the things to diffuse your stressful situations is to narrow it down, stay focused on the task at hand, keep your expectations realistic. Don't expect yourself to be a superhero. We all try to do that to do for everybody else. Many people are very giving and supportive. Keep it simple. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So are you tend to make things more difficult than they can be? Stop and think about things before you start them. That might be helpful. Note signs of overdoing. And we just talked about this. When you try to do too much, or when you're tired, you're feeling tired all the time, it's time to take a day off. Take a me day, take a me hour. Give yourself, be kind to yourself. And take that time out for yourself. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, and here's the website. And one thing I wanted to remind you of, this is being recorded. So all those questions that you saw ahead of time, you can go back and look at that on the YouTube channel and do some of those exercises, because we just didn't have time to go, to really spend more time writing them down today. But I'm going to share with you a 5-minute relaxation that's on our website. It's free. So I want you to sort of get really comfortable, kick off your shoes, turn off your cameras, because you don't want, I just want you to be as relaxed, as comfortable. If you want to keep your computer on, the sound on, and lay down on a comfortable bed or somewhere that you have close by, or if you're in some kind of chair, go back, because I'm going to play this for you, and then I just want you to relax. And as the next slide will start in just a moment, here it comes. Keep your sound up.
Close your eyes gently. Settle down comfortably. Begin by breathing out first. Then breathe in easily, just as much as you need. Now, breathe out slowly with a slight sigh. And as you breathe out, feel the tension begin to drain away. Then go back to your ordinary breathing. Even, quiet, and steady. Now, direct your thoughts to each part of your body, to your muscles and joints. Think first about your left foot. Your toes are relaxed and still. Your foot is resting easily on the floor. Now your right foot, toes, ankles. Now think about your legs. Your thighs roll outward when they are relaxed, so let them go. Your back muscles will relax when you hold yourself upright and your spine is supported by the back of the chair. Let your abdominal muscles become soft and relaxed. There is no need to hold your tummy in tightly. It rises and falls as you breathe quietly. Think about the fingers on your left hand. They are curved, limp, quiet, and still. Now the fingers on your right hand. Relaxed, soft, and still. This feeling of relaxation spreads up your arms to your shoulders. Let your shoulders relax. Let them drop easily. Your neck muscles are relaxed if your head is held upright, resting easily balanced on the top of your spine. Let your face relax. Let the expression come off it. Make sure that your teeth are not held tightly together, and let your jaw rest in its relaxed position. Your cheeks are soft because there is no need to keep up an expression. Your lips are soft and hardly touching. Relax your forehead so it feels a little wider and a little higher than before. Now, instead of thinking of yourself in parts, become aware of the all-over sensation of letting go, of quiet and rest. When your muscles are relaxed, you begin to feel peaceful, rested, and quiet. Stay like this, listening to your breathing for a moment. Now, wiggle your hands and legs a little, and open your eyes and sit quietly for a moment.
Our final speaker is a video that we're going to play on the art of stress management. And Sarah Burns is a professional landscape painter and art teacher. And you'll see some of the work that she does and how that work has relieved stress and helped people cope with stress better. So why don't we go ahead and play Sarah's video.
Hello everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm a full-time artist, but I am here today to walk you through how I painted this Celtic tree or tree of life. It's something that you can do in an afternoon with the kids or just by yourself for some self-care. Take some time between projects and use this as a way to calm yourself and also create something really special that you can either hang up or give to a friend. To make it easy, I have a graphic for you to print out. You can either print it onto watercolor paper or trace it. I'll show you how I do that. You can open the file in whatever software you have. I'm using Photoshop here. But once you press print, you will probably get a box that pops up with lots of little options. The only thing I do here is to deselect scale to fit, because I want the image to stay at a 4x6 inch size. Yes, you could technically print to any size, but I want mine to be a little postcard size painting in the end. And there are lots of ways we could paint this design. In the past, I've done a variety of styles, but today I'll show you how we paint the colorful background and then color in the tree on top of that. So after you've printed it out, it's time to grab that plus your watercolor paper and a pencil and go find a bright window. Place your printed page on the window and then your watercolor paper on top, and do your best to center it in the watercolor paper. And then trace the image. It's that easy. Now technically you could print directly onto watercolor paper if your printer would handle that, but I wanted to make sure that everyone could join in, and this is the easiest way to do it if you don't have a special printer. You don't have to have lots of colors for this. Ideally, you want at least 2 colors so that we can have some fun. Otherwise, you could use anything you have around the house, like diluted coffee or tea or even wine or fruit juices. However, with those natural materials, I can't guarantee how long the color will last on your paper, but it could just be a fun way for you to participate if you don't own any watercolors. We'll also need a couple brushes. I have a large and a small size, and a cup of water of some sort. Our first layer is going to be what is known as wet into wet technique, whereas we get the paper wet and then we drop wet paint into it, and it will start to flow and spread over the paper and give us some really beautiful effects. For that reason, I put a towel down underneath because that'll help catch some of the extra water. To start off, we simply get our paper wet, and I'm tilting it in the light so you can see how wet it is. We don't necessarily need it to be dripping off the paper, but enough so that the paper is fully saturated. If you have very thin paper for this, you will probably notice your paper is buckling or bending a lot. It's okay. Once it dries, it'll become flat again, or you can flatten it, and I'll talk about that later. After we get the whole paper wet, we will start adding our color. And I'm switching between using my blue and my pink because I know it'll spread and flow together and give me a really pretty purple color. Sometimes I'll also touch in other colors, but for the most part, you want to avoid mixing complementary colors together, because when you do that, you end up creating mud or neutralizing your color quite a bit. As you add paint, you're going to notice it's going to be dripping off the paper. So what I do is tilt it upwards, which is why you see me holding it like this, and let the drips fall. That's why I have the paper towel there. Another fun thing we can do to spice it up a little bit is splash some color onto it while it's still wet. So set the paper down and load up your brush with one color. You can tap it against a pencil and the paint will release in a splatter onto the paper below. Another reason you want a towel down. And now we want to let it dry. We don't want to keep painting and touching it too much because paper can only handle so much. If we keep touching it, we might end up with just a big blob. Watercolor dries lighter than it looks when it's wet, so at this point, if you didn't use a ton of color, it's going to end up being very, very light, which is totally fine. It's just a lesson to learn, but also it will allow the foreground image that we're going to paint to stand out even more. Now I will grab my smaller brush, which has a very fine pointed tip, which allows me to get a little more detail. And I've decided I'm going to make my leaves pink. So I start with a little bit of paint at first until I get the hang of it. If you start with too much paint or water on your brush, it will be much harder to paint details because all of that paint and water just wants to flow off of the tip of the brush onto your paper, and you might end up with little blobs. It also makes it easier because my brush is so pointed. If you happen to have a brush that is not pointed, you might not be able to get quite as detailed, but that's okay. Everyone's painting is going to look different in the end, and it will just be unique to you. If you want to have even more fun with this part, you could use a variety of colors. So you could make each leaf a different color, or touch the tip of the leaf with pink and the base of the leaf with blue, and just see how those colors mix and flow together. When I'm painting something like this, which technically is quite detailed, I like to allow my brain to just sort of shut off. So I give myself little rules like my leaves are pink, my tree branches will be blue, my roots will be green, or something like that, because it takes away all the guesswork and gives me a plan to work with. Or if you want to keep it extra simple, you can paint the entire thing with one color. It will still look cool. When you're finished with your leaves, it's time to choose a color for the rest of it. And like I said, you can use a variety of colors. You don't just have to stick with one. And as I paint, you'll see that I'm sort of shifting between different colors here and there. And there are a variety of ways you could approach this larger part of the painting. You could simply paint one layer of color on the whole thing, ignoring the fact that some of the branches and the roots are overlapping. And honestly, that would be much easier than the way I did it. For some reason, I decided to paint individual branches and sections, and I would stop at the point where a branch went underneath another branch. But then as I went on, I kind of let go of that. But this is, again, it's good to have a plan of action because watercolor dries, obviously, and as it's drying, it can sometimes give you a hard edge. So if you stop at any one point in the painting and it dries, and then you try to paint over that area, you might notice that hard edge. It's hard to explain, it's just something you'll notice as you paint. But if that happens, it's not the end of the world, and I had it happen to me a few times, and in the end, it's like you really don't even notice it when you're looking at the entire thing as a whole. So I just wanted to throw that out there for anyone who is brand new to watercolor. It takes some getting used to. This is a really good piece to help practice water control in general. How much water and pigment is in your brush does make a difference. So what I suggest is trying this once, see how it starts to feel. How is your brush flowing across the paper? Did you need more pigment or did you need more water? And after you've done it once, you have learned so much, and you can use that as the practice run. Then do it again with everything you've learned, and even try different colors if you want. And I guarantee the second time will feel much more relaxing and you'll probably have better results. So since it takes me a while to paint this, I'm just going to throw some fun music down for you guys, and we'll continue on with filling in the rest of the tree. So now that the first layer is down, you can see I went outside the lines a little bit here and there, and some areas are more pigmented than others. I wanted to show you that because, nobody's perfect, and it doesn't have to be perfect. This is about having fun and exploring the colors and just enjoying the process. So get it out of your head that you have to make something perfect. Instead of thinking that way, use that mental energy to pour your heart and happiness and joy and healing energy into this painting. That way, when you look at it in the future, or if you give it to someone special, it has so much more meaning. But I'm not quite done yet. I want to add some more color and depth to my painting, so I'm going to go over it with another thin down wash of color. This is what we call glazing. So my plan is to add a hint of green to all of the roots, and later a hint of pink to some of the branches. Since I'm using diluted paint, the color underneath is technically going to show through, so it gives me more of a bluish green. And later in the branches, it'll be more of a pinkish, bluish purple. If you're struggling with any of the finer details of this painting process, what you could do at this point, instead of adding another layer of watercolor, is you could use colored pencils. That's actually a very common thing. People like to use colored pencils on top of watercolor. It goes really well together. And by pressing harder or lighter with the colored pencil, you can let more or less of the watercolor show through and change how it looks, change the color. It would also be much easier to do that, to line the edges of the painting if that's what you're interested in doing, versus painting tiny little thin lines with watercolor, which I'm doing in a few areas. Another tip I have for glazing is to use less water and pigment than you think you might need. Less is more in this situation. If you use too much, you're going to completely cover whatever color was on the first layer. And maybe that's what you want in some spots, but for the most part, I'm trying to get subtle shifts between that first layer and this second layer. So as I paint, you might see my brush going off the side of the camera. That's me either wiping it off on the paper towel or just reloading it with a little bit more pigment. It's a constant back and forth. If you want to add just a little bit of depth to the branches or the roots, one thing that you can do is line the bottom of each of them with a slightly darker color or a slightly different color, because as they layer up, the colors will get a little bit darker. And that will just kind of separate the branches as they overlap and bring just a hint more depth to it and make it look really cool. But otherwise, we're pretty much done. And of course, you can go much further and make it very detailed and precise. It's totally up to you how you finish your painting. So if your finished painting is a little bit buckled or wrinkly or whatever, we can fix that. What I typically do is put down a clean piece of paper, and then I spray the back of my painting with just a little bit of water. I'll also use a brush to make sure it evenly coats the back of the painting. And then set it down face up and find a very clean, heavy book and place it on top. Let it dry for a couple hours or even overnight, and when you lift the book off, you will have a perfectly flat painting. Don't forget to sign your beautiful work. The tree of life can symbolize many things to different people, including a link between heaven and earth, the mind and the body, and the never-ending cycle of life. Whatever it means to you, I hope you enjoyed this process and that you end up with a beautiful piece of art you can hang up and remind you of your own inner strength. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sending you many blessings from Scotland.
So that was interesting. The reason that I wanted to share this with everyone is that, one of the ways to reduce stress is to redirect your attention off of some situation you have absolutely no control over and redirect it onto something you have more control over. So when you get into art, it just sort of, you lose yourself in that project. You just sort of get consumed by it. And as I said, you have a one-track mind, so you can't really think about that stressful situation. Even when Yolanda played the music, it was allowing you to redirect your thought to that music. So the art and music therapy are very new ways that people have been using to manage pain and stress. And that was one of the reasons that we wanted to share this with you. Unfortunately, our yoga section, we should have recorded it, learn from your mistakes. As I said, you're allowed to make mistakes. So as we wrap this up, I again like to thank all of you for your time and your effort. All of our presenters did a great job, and I hope everybody really got something out of this, and know that, stress is something that can either sort of take over you and immobilize you, or you can learn to manage it through exercise, through mindfulness, through talking about it with other people, making lists, choosing what you can do, pros and cons of a situation that you're not sure about. Talk to someone else, ask for help. All those things are going to be very helpful for you. So again, in closing, I really want to thank everyone. I wish we had a little more time to talk about any questions or concerns. Andrew, would you like to say any last words before we sign off?
Well, I would say, again, I want to thank all the speakers for sharing their stories and their wealth of information, and thank the audience for coming. We will be having more of these webinars coming up very soon. And I think the next one is on how to best raise funds at your nonprofit organization. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Penny, but I believe Yolanta will be leading a workshop on raising money during the pandemic and how to best do that. So I think a lot of our members will be interested in that. You can follow us on social media on these channels that you see listed here. And check out the chat. There's lots of discussion that's going on in the chat, including Christopher's just posted a great quote. So just want to thank all of you again, and we will see you at the next webinar.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.